I'm Oleander, founder of the Literacy Sphere Diction Academy and the Distinct Kids Club. Today we'll be looking at how to end speeches, effective conclusions. How do you end your speech with a bang? How do you close your speech and make it memorable? Why are conclusions important? Why is an effective closing important? That's because that's what remains in the minds of your audience long after the speech, even though they forget everything else. That's why your conclusion must be short, effective, and memorable. I repeat, your conclusion must be short, effective, and memorable. Now, how can you make a short, effective, and memorable conclusion? First, let me mention that your general conclusion depends on the length of your speech. So if you're making a 10-minute speech, for instance, your conclusion should be up to 1 minute. Okay, your general conclusion. Now, what's included in your conclusion? Your summary. So your conclusion is what sums up your speech. It brings together all you've said. That's a part of your conclusion. So in your conclusion, you have your summary, and then you have your closing statement. I'm going to concentrate on your closing statement for the purpose of today's discussion. However, take note that as a part of your conclusion, you have to summarize the main points. Toward the end of your presentation, ensure that you restate the points so that your audience will be able to remember all you've said. Now you need to make a powerful closing statement. We have different kinds of closing statements. However, I'm going to talk about 3. 1, you can end with a story, a striking story. 2, you can end with a call to action. And 3, you can end with a memorable quote or quotation. Now let's talk about a short story or a striking story. This usually works best when you've started with a story. Some time ago, we talked about unconventional introductions. We talked about how to introduce your speech in a way that captivates your audience. And one of the ways to do that is to tell a story. People love stories. They love to hear stories. It always holds your attention. And so, an effective way to conclude a speech is also to use a story. And remember, the story you use at the end must match the one you use at the beginning. So what I usually do is start the story at the beginning, let my presentation flow, and then at the end, I conclude with the ending of that story, as well as the moral from the story. When I say moral, I mean the lesson from the story. Make it very clear to your audience what they're taking away from that story and how it is related to what you're saying. I'm going to give you an example. Let's say you want to talk about education. Now you begin with a story of a little girl whose parents could not afford 3 square meals. They could only afford to eat once a day, and so they couldn't send poor Agnes to school. And Agnes had to go out early every morning to hawk. However, as time went on, things changed. And so in today's speech, I'm going to tell you about the power of education. What is education? You see, I started with a story. And what happens when you start with a story? You capture your audience's attention and you hold it. All right? So that's one way to begin a presentation. And now how do you end using that story? When you've talked about education and all the great benefits that can come from it, you bring up the slide again, and then you show the picture of Agnes. And now, to show you the power of education, take a look at my slide. Can you guess who that is? That's our poor Agnes, no longer poor. She is now the founder of the most prestigious private school in Lagos. I'm just giving an example. That's her, that's Agnes. What happened? She was picked up by a philanthropist who took up her education and saw her through school. But then Agnes was interested. She poured her heart into her education. She was determined to rise above her background, her disadvantaged background. And she was also determined to make her benefactor proud. She was determined to make that philanthropist and her parents proud. And so she came out with flying colours, and here she is today. Someone who would have been written off by the society. That, my friends, illustrates the power of education. Yay! What do you think? That's what you get from your audience, an applause, if not a standing ovation. Yes. Now let's look at the second way to end a speech. You can use a call to action. Now what's a call to action? A call to action is a statement that moves your audience to action, that is meant to motivate your audience, to move them to act on all the things you've said on your speech. For instance, you've talked about climate change and all the effects of pollution on our climate, and you've encouraged everyone to ensure that they keep the environment clean. And now you want to motivate them to action, and so toward the end of your speech you say, and so I beckon on all of you to arise and let's save our dear planet. How do you think this would affect your audience? They would be motivated, wouldn't they? Of course they would. Right, so that's the second way you can think about ending your speech. Move them to action. So you tailor your conclusion, your concluding statement, your closing statement, you tailor it to your speech. All right. Finally, you can end with a memorable quotation. So you can refer to something said by someone. Now I want to mention something about this. If you're using a quotation, it has to be specific. It has to be made by someone whom your audience is familiar with, someone well known to your audience. And so I will simply show you an example. Watch, please.
Paul, a renowned hero of the Christian faith, said in a letter shortly before his death, I have fought the good fight. I have finished the race. I have kept the faith. Fight the good fight, my friends. Run the marathon of life. Keep the faith. Mine for gold, even when it's not glittering. Congratulations, Plano East class of 2019.
And so, dear friends, I leave you with this powerful statement by Walt Disney. The way to get started is to quit talking and start doing. And so I'll have to stop talking now. Thank you for your time. How did you see this one too? Did you enjoy it? Yes. So I used the quotation by Walt Disney, and I added a little bit of humor when I said I would have to stop talking now. And yes, of course, that would create humor, but then your message has been passed. So these are the ways to end your speech with a bang. Remember, you can use our story, and it's always best to link the beginning of your presentation, the introduction, to the end. Of course, the whole presentation, even the body, has to be linked to the introduction and the end. Next, a call to action. A call to action. Always great to close with a call to action. Next, we'll look at another way, another effective kind of closing, and that's a quotation, right? A memorable quotation. If you enjoyed this video, please drop a like, drop a comment. I would like you to tell me which other thing you would like to learn so that I can create a video to that effect. If you've not subscribed to my channel already, please subscribe to my channel, invite your friends as well. I'll see you in the next video. Thank you.